I'm Justin Mott, and welcome to my home here in Hanoi, Vietnam. And if you're new here, my channel is dedicated to all things photography from the perspective of a full-time working professional photographer. And today I'm going to I'm not going to expose myself. Today I'm going to expose my weaknesses as a photographer throughout my entire career. I'm going to talk to you about how I've overcome some of those weaknesses and how some of them maybe not so much. So let's get into it and let's talk photography. So guys, as always, don't forget to check out my online store at justinmott.com, where I've got presets that will not make you a better photographer, but they will add some popular images. I've also got prints with free shipping in the US and Canada. They make great gifts. Holidays are coming up. And lastly, I've got a variety of online one-on-one classes aimed at helping you become a better photographer. Those are open to pros, amateurs, all levels of photographers interested in all genres. Again, that's all available at justinmott.com. So today I'm going to talk about my weaknesses as a photographer. We all have them, but also I'd like for you guys to interact in the comment section. I'd love to hear your weaknesses as a photographer, and maybe I could give you guys some advice on how to overcome those. So first of all, my first weakness, and this is funny, before I did this, I actually sat down with my wife, and because we work together, she's a producer for our video production business and commercial photography business, Mott Visuals. I was like, hey, what are some of my weaknesses? And wow, man, she had a list. She had a long list. I'm not going to talk about all those because some of them debatable. And also, just to address the guy that mentioned recently that I talk too much with my hands, this is for you. Yeah, I'm going to talk with my hands all day. And now you guys, because I talked about that, you're going to focus on it a lot. Okay, that leads to my first weakness, which is taking things too personal. That's always been a problem throughout my entire career, especially in the beginning, because I am very passionate about what I do. I'm very passionate about every single shoot that I've ever done. And I take it very personal if a client, not even if they didn't like it, if they didn't even get back to me with like an email or some sort of communication that, voicing that they were thrilled with the shoot, I would like beat myself up about it in my head. I would play this up in my head, not for days, but for weeks. I would be like, why didn't that editor write back to me? Because that's me. Like I'm a very positive person, and I communicate openly. I'm the kind of person after a shoot that might write like a handwritten letter or send an email to everyone on the shoot and thanking them. And it's just kind of like who I am. So when I don't get that back, I take it very personal. And that's a weakness because it would really beat me up in my head, and I would get in my head about it. And it turned out most of the time, more times than not, I was in my own head about it. It would be like an editor just was busy and they didn't get back to me, and they'd hire me like a week later for another shoot. So I know they liked the work. Or it would be a commercial client like, oh, we referred to you by this hotel. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think that hotel was like that thrilled with the images, but they referred me for another job, or that marketing person went to another company and they hired me. Oftentimes it's just people aren't as passionate or don't communicate as much as I do, or didn't even care as much about the shoot as I did. So whether it be a marketing person, an editor, it's not always you, sometimes it's just the situations. And then the rare case where a client like would voice that they weren't happy with the images. I mean, that didn't happen much, but it does happen, right? And when that did happen, oh my God, that would like crush my soul. It would kill me. I talked to my wife about it for like weeks. Be like, why don't they love me? Why don't they love my images? No, it would bug me. I would take it way too personal. And how I've overcome it is I've just realized that they're just idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. No, sometimes that's the case. But how I've overcome it is, listen, photography is subjective. Some people like a certain style. Some people don't. Sometimes they just have different tastes than you. And the way that I've come to peace with this kind of stuff in my head was always, okay, did I give my best? That's the first thing. I'd sit, if I got an email saying like someone wasn't happy with the images, I'd sit with it for a day first. Don't be so reactive. But I'd also like ask myself, like, did I do my best? I'd go back through the shoot and like, is there anything I missed? How was I feeling? Did I give everything? And I always do give everything on a shoot, so that was never the case. And then I would just say, hey, is this consistent with what is on my website? Is this consistent with the images in my portfolio? Is it up to the standard as far as quality, as far as creativity, and really everything that's on my website? The work that they hired me for, the work they hired me based on my portfolio, is this consistent with that? And if the answer was yes, then it was out of my control, and I would kind of come to peace with it. Doesn't mean I like it, but I could come to peace with it, and it wouldn't eat me up my head. My next weakness is probably patience, not patience in my photography. I'm very patient when trying to get a shot. I'm very patient in waiting. I can sit on a situation. I can sit on light for a long time. But I'm not that patient for non-photography things. I needed to go to this village and get access to someone's house, and I was on an editorial assignment. rather than like sit down and have coffee or tea and get to know people. I just wanted to like shoot all the time. If there's good light, nothing else could really get in the way. And that's not always a good thing. Like, you need to ease your way in. You need to earn that space with your cameras. And the same goes for commercial photography. This is the one my wife said. She said, you're not always that patient on scouting days, because it's like I'm such an in the moment photographer. I can look, I can understand, but like to sit and look at a room in a lobby for like an hour while everyone takes notes, I know that's what it takes for commercial work. I know they have a lot of work to do and a lot of things they need to discuss, and they need to ask me those things. But being a person that loves the shoot day, loves everything that goes into that and the whole production, I love that. But as far as like the other stuff and even having dinners with the client or pre-production meetings and all the time, it's a lot of it's necessary. Some of it's unnecessary, I feel, but anyway, I had to learn that patience because it's important, especially when it comes to commercial work, because there's a lot of money at stake. The next weakness of mine is probably my technical skills, and that would be related to like technical lighting, technical in-camera stuff, and even technical post-production work. I never liked Photoshop. I'm not the type of person that has multiple layers open at one time. I'm not masking images. However, in my commercial work, especially room shots, lobbies, I had to learn it. I held on as long as I could, doing natural light shots and selling that and working that. However, sometimes you need to light things, and with that comes a lot of work in post-production with, doing composites and putting images together and things like that. So I'm not that interested in it, which I used as an excuse to not get good at it or not to understand it. However, as my business, as Mott Visuals grew and we started doing a ton of luxury hotels and resorts, I needed to understand it better. I still don't do the heavy retouching myself. I outsource it, but I needed to understand it better so that I understood what my retoucher needed me to deliver so that he could put this work together and it could be polished for the client. It's okay to be humble with that kind of stuff and say, hey, I'm not that good at this, so let me get someone that is. The next weakness is a two-parter or 2-for-1. It's finding balance between my career as a photographer and my personal life, and then also finding balance within my types of photography. I got into photography to do personal work, documentary work, personal projects, stories, things that I love, things that I'm passionate about. However, that doesn't necessarily pay the bills well, or at least it didn't for me. So I had to balance that out, or I wanted to balance that out with doing a lot of commercial work and assignment work. However, the next thing you know, 10 years later, I hadn't done any personal projects, and that's what drew me to photography. That's where I fell in love with photography. So it took me turning 40 several years back to find that balance again and get back into my personal work. So I wish I found that balance earlier. I always had it in the back of my head. So I encourage you guys to not make the same mistakes that I've made, is try to keep that balance on, like, a job for you and a job for them. And it's a tough balance, and you have to figure that out in your own head, what is okay. For me, it just was too long in between projects, and I'm happy to have found that balance now, get back to my personal work. And then there's balance between my work as a photographer and my personal life. I think for a long time, for that like a solid decade, my 30s, from 30 to 40, I was working a ton. I was traveling a ton, and not like in the kind of thing that everyone says, like they travel all the time. Like I was traveling roughly 80 to 90% of the year. I was doing a TV show about photography. I was doing commercial work. I was doing wedding work, and I was doing all my editorial assignment stuff. So the New York Times was sending me everywhere. I'd come back from a shoot. I mean, it reached its pinnacle one time. I'll never forget this time where I actually was coming back from another country and back into Vietnam. I had to have my assistant meet me at the airport so I could drop off my commercial gear, and she could bring me my editorial gear and a change of clothes because I was flying domestically for another shoot. So the shoots were just piling on top of each other, one after another. And that was tough on my relationship. That was tough on my marriage. That was tough on my personal life. A lot of my expat friends here in Hanoi moved on, didn't get a chance to say goodbye, didn't get a chance to cultivate like new friendships here. And so it really took its toll. And I didn't really know I was burnt out, or didn't know that I would like that other life, like a life outside of photography, until the pandemic happened. Honestly, it was a blessing in disguise for me. It just was. I was like, wow, this was really taxing. Traveling so much and going from shoot to shoot, it was exhausting. I was craving consistency in my life. I was putting on weight. I wasn't living healthy. And so during the pandemic, I got back into cycling. I spent time with my dog, spent more time with my wife, spent more time in having a routine here in Hanoi, having like a normal or like somewhat normal life. And guess what? I like it and I'm happy. So it took me a long time to find that balance, but I finally discovered it, but it just took a long time. And the last weakness, I mean, I have many more weaknesses, but the last one I talk about today is working too fast. This sounds like one of those like, oh, my biggest weakness is I care too much. No, like I do work very fast. I did a whole episode about working fast. And while that's a huge strength for my assignment work, and that's kind of where I started. That's where I was like formed as a photographer. It can be quite a weakness for commercial work. As my wife told me when I asked her for some of my weaknesses, she said, yeah, not everyone can keep up with you. So when you do a commercial shoot, like, you're putting a lot of stress on the models, on the makeup artists, on the producer, because you're working very fast. You're trying to get the next shot. You're always working, like I am. I'm always busy. I'm not working fast so I can finish. I'm working fast so I can have more time for more options. And sometimes I just see things very clearly that I shoot really fast, but I don't allow my team around me to keep up. And that can be quite a weakness. It can be a strength too, but it can be a weakness. So for me, I've had to sort of recognize in the moment, like, all right, give everyone a minute, or tell my team to just tell me, because I can't see it in the moment. So I just tell them, like, hey, tell me you need a minute, you need some time to reset. Because I work fast, I think fast, I multitask. And like I said, I'm so focused, hyper focused when I'm shooting, that I forget to sort of see the big picture around me. And especially in commercial photography, it's important because you're not the only one. It's a team effort. So that's it for today, guys. Those are my weaknesses. Again, I'd love to hear your weaknesses. If you guys have enjoyed this episode, you enjoy my channel, you might even think about joining. I have a lot of bonus content on there. It's only $4.99 a month. It's a whole bunch of membership perks. You even get early access to my workshops that take place all over the world. It's like buying me a cup of coffee a month. If you're interested in that, cool, that would be great. If not, that's okay too. I do encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. And lastly, don't forget to have a wonderful day.